Well, now that Jeremy Corbyn has the power to change Tory policy on universal credit helpline charges, perhaps UK Prime Minister Theresa May will listen to him about backing and arming the Saudi war in Yemen. The UK-US-backed bombing of the poorest country in the Middle East has arguably not only led to the killing of thousands of men, women and children, but has caused the fastest-growing cholera epidemic in recent history, affecting over 600,000 children, maybe. Dr. Sherin Varki from UNICEF joins me now from Yemen's capital city, Sana'a. Sherin, thanks for joining us. So Britain still supporting the air attacks on Yemen, but on the ground, UNICEF apparently finding itself having to decide between feeding healthy children or treating the sick. Yemen looks beautiful from the background there. What's happening on the ground?
Thank you, Afshan, for having me. And the situation, as you described, is truly dire. The latest figures of the outbreak tell us that there are about 850,000 suspected cases of cholera, and the death toll has crossed 2,000. 1/4 of these cases are little children. In addition, the whole situation of nutrition is extremely worrying. We have 2 million children who are suffering from acute malnutrition. Of these, close to 385,000 children are suffering from severe and acute malnutrition, which puts them at a high risk of death. Almost 7 million Yemenis are facing severe food insecurity, which simply means they don't know where their next meal will come from. All in all, it is truly an alarming situation, and children are paying the heaviest price.
And now your regional director, Geert Capelair, saying that 4.5 million children look set to have no education either.
That is correct. The situation of education is really worrying. Since 2.5 years of conflict, we've had more than 2 million children out of school. 1,600 schools have been partially or completely destroyed. Now, with more than 70% of teachers not having received their salaries since the last year, this is really threatening the education of a further 4.5 million children. In addition, malnutrition and the trauma of displacement and violence is seriously affecting the ability of children to learn. Education is on the brink in Yemen, and education is probably the only chance for the children of Yemen to secure a better future and to put Yemen on the path to peace.
Are Theresa May's British-made bombs falling on Yemen helping UNICEF's work?
Well, the conflict has taken its toll. We have verified reports of children being killed, children being maimed, and all parties to the conflict really must respect international humanitarian law and allow unhindered access to the humanitarian organizations like UNICEF, the other UN partners, the international and national NGOs, so that we are able to reach every corner of the country with the necessary aid. Time is crucial, and really the situation with every passing day is spiraling downwards.
Britain's RAF is training the warplanes that are dropping bombs. There are obviously mistakes, though, being made. What does UNICEF and your people on the ground think of this figure of maybe 1,600 schools partially or totally destroyed?
As UNICEF, we are really worried about the situation of children, and the killing of children is never justified. We are, of course, advocating that civilian infrastructure like schools, like health facilities, should not be targeted during the conflict. But what is more important to note is that while there are children dying due to the violence, there are a large number of children dying simply because important systems like the health system, the water and sanitation system are fast collapsing. We know that now in Yemen, 1 child dies every 10 minutes. This is simply unacceptable, and it is time all the international powers put pressure on all parties to the conflict to end this indiscriminate violence and do more for the children of Yemen.
Britain is the 4th biggest donor to Yemen, giving £100 million worth of aid. Is it that or the £3.3 billion of arms and weapons sold to Saudi Arabia that does more help for your workers in Yemen?
We are, of course, grateful to all donors who are contributing to the delivery of aid to Yemenis. We know today that there are about more than 20 million Yemenis in need of humanitarian aid. The numbers are startling. of these 10 million children are in need of acute humanitarian aid. This is really worrying, and we encourage more donors to stand up and support Yemen. As you know, when the UN released its annual need for Yemen, the ask was for $2.3 billion. And so far, only about 50% of those needs have been met. There's really a shortage of resources. I recently visited a hospital, a children's hospital in the capital city of Sana'a, and the doctors were struggling with lack of medicines, with the essential supplies to treat children with suspected cholera. In addition, the closure of the international airport in Sana'a to commercial airlines makes it difficult for Yemenis to go outside to seek medical care. It is really a dire situation and very alarming and heart-wrenching at the same time.
So is there a de facto British-backed Saudi blockade that is affecting your ability to get medicine for children in Yemen?
Access remains a challenge for all partners, and while the partners do have access to wide parts of the country in delivering aid, there are bureaucratic impediments imposed by all sides on the humanitarian actors. This is something which has to stop, and humanitarian actors should be allowed to freely access all corners of the country. In addition, the delivery of aid has to be faster, and we are looking at the authorities on all sides to support the humanitarian actors to enable speedy delivery of aid where it is most needed.
Is there a sense of tragic irony amongst you and your fellow aid workers that the countries giving aid to Yemen are the very same countries that are bombing Yemen or aiding the bombing of Yemen?
As I said before, there is an acute shortage of resources, and all those willing to help with a concern for Yemenis are welcome to support the relief efforts. This is really important, and there is really no time to waste. Working as a humanitarian aid worker in Yemen, there are times when the situation can be really painful. When you visit families with children, I recently, with children who are suffering from starvation and malnutrition, I recently visited Hudaydah, which is one of the governorates in on the front lines of the conflict. And there I met a family with a mother with 5 children. 3 of them were suffering from acute watery diarrhea. And this mother really had to make the choice whether she had to take these children who were sick to the hospital or whether to feed the other siblings. Her husband was out of work since more than 8 months, and really the family was struggling to survive. We know that there are many more families suffering like this. Almost 80% of households in Yemen are in debt, and they're mostly borrowing money to purchase food. This is really a heart-wrenching situation.
And finally, what if British warplanes are used to further blockade supplies from reaching your workers in Sana'a?
So far, we have been able to get supplies using the resources available to every corner of the country. The challenge is access and bureaucratic impediments by all sides, and this is something which must stop. Humanitarian aid workers must be allowed unhindered access to reach every corner of the country with the essential supplies, including oral rehydration salts, water purification tablets, life-saving medicines, and all the other essential supplies which are required. Really, time is running out. Yemen is on the brink, and all the international community, as well as the authorities in Yemen, need to make a concerted effort. Humanity is becoming a victim of politics in Yemen, and this is really worrying. And for the sake of Yemeni children, the world must act. The effects of this conflict will be seen long after the conflict is over, with the impact on education, with the impact on health services. Future generations will also bear the impact of the conflict of today.
Dr. Sharon Varkey, thank you.